Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars through the large window. His ship was the newest exploration vessel in Earth's fleet, built to find new worlds and make contact with alien life. After 3 months of traveling through empty space, they had finally found something interesting. "Captain, we're picking up massive energy signatures ahead," called out Lieutenant Amy Carter from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel as she studied the readings. "These ships are huge, sir. Much bigger than anything we've ever built." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The computer showed 12 enormous vessels arranged in a perfect formation. Each ship was at least 5 times larger than the New Horizon. Their dark metal hulls gleamed under the light of a nearby star, and strange symbols covered their surfaces. "Any response to our greeting signals?" Jake asked. "Nothing yet, sir," replied Commander Lisa Hayes, who handled all diplomatic communications. She had been trying to contact the alien ships for the past hour. "I've sent our standard first contact message in 17 different mathematical languages. They're definitely receiving our signals, but they won't talk back." Jake felt nervous but excited. This was what he had trained for his entire career. Humanity had been exploring space for over a century, always hoping to find intelligent life. Now they had found it, and it was his job to make first contact go smoothly. "Keep trying, Lisa. Maybe they need more time to understand our messages." He turned to his communications officer. "Tom, send our location back to Earth Command. Let them know we found something big out here." The alien ships suddenly began to move. They spread out into a wide circle around the New Horizon, their massive engines glowing with an eerie blue light. Jake had seen military formations before, and this looked exactly like one. "Captain, they're surrounding us," said Amy, her voice tight with worry. "All 12 ships are moving into attack positions." Lisa tried again to make contact. "Unknown vessels, this is Commander Lisa Hayes of the Earth ship New Horizon. We come in peace and wish to establish friendly relations with your people. Please respond." The only answer came in the form of weapons. Bright red beams shot out from the alien ships, barely missing the New Horizon. Jake felt the ship shake as the energy blasts passed close by. "Those were warning shots," Jake said quickly. "They want us to leave. Tom, prepare to jump back to Earth space. We're not equipped for a fight." But before they could escape, one of the alien ships moved directly in front of them. A deep, harsh voice suddenly filled the bridge, speaking in perfect English. "Primitive creatures," the voice said with obvious disgust. "Your species will serve the Kethvar Empire as slaves. Your resistance is meaningless." Jake stepped forward, trying to stay calm. "We don't want to fight you. We're explorers, not soldiers." "There's been some kind of misunderstanding." The alien voice laughed coldly. "There is no misunderstanding, human. We are the Kethvar. For 2,000 years we have ruled this part of the galaxy. Every species we encounter becomes part of our empire, willingly or not. Your choice is simple. Surrender now or watch your people die slowly." Lisa tried once more to reason with them. "We have families, children, innocent people who have never done anything to hurt you. Surely we can find a peaceful solution." "Your families will work in our mines," the voice replied without emotion. "Your children will be raised to serve our warriors. This is the fate of all weak species who cross our path." The alien ships opened fire without warning. The New Horizon's shields flared as energy beams struck them again and again. Jake grabbed the nearest rail as his ship shook violently. "Return fire," he shouted. "Sir, our weapons barely scratched their hulls," Amy reported as she fired everything they had. "Their armor is too thick." Meanwhile, far across space, Pete Collins was working late at mining station Omega 7. He was a simple engineer who fixed broken equipment and kept the station running. His wife Sarah and their 2 young children lived on New Terra, one of humanity's newest colonies just a few light years away. Pete was adjusting a faulty air recycler when alarms began screaming throughout the station. He ran to the main control room where other workers were staring at the viewing screens in horror. "What's happening?" Pete asked. "Ships," whispered Maria Santos, the station commander. "Alien ships just appeared in New Terra's orbit. Hundreds of them." Pete felt his heart stop. "My family is down there." On the screen, they watched as the alien vessels began firing on the planet below. Bright flashes of light marked where cities used to be. The beautiful blue and green world that Pete called home was being destroyed before his eyes. "They're not even trying to capture anything," Maria said in shock. "They're just killing everyone." Pete collapsed into a chair, watching helplessly, as New Terra died. Every flash of light meant thousands of people were gone. His wife Sarah, his children Tommy and Beth, his friends and neighbors, all burning under alien weapons. The attack lasted only 6 hours. When it ended, New Terra was a lifeless rock. 4 other human colonies suffered the same fate that day. Over 50,000 people died without ever knowing why. The Kethvar Admiral Zekthar reviewed the reports from his commanders with satisfaction. "Another group of primitives eliminated," he told his officers. "Send scouts to find more human settlements. We will destroy them all before they become a problem." His aide bowed respectfully. "Should we take prisoners for slaves, Admiral?" "No," Zekthar replied coldly. "These humans seem more trouble than they are worth. It is easier to simply remove them entirely. Besides, we have plenty of other species to do our work." What the Kethavar did not understand was that they had just made the worst mistake in their long history of conquest. They had attacked a species that grew stronger when pushed to the edge, a species that never forgot those who hurt their families, and a species that would do anything to protect their own. The war was about to begin, and humanity would show the galaxy what happened when someone picked a fight with the wrong species. Pete Collins sat alone in the communications room of Mining Station Omega-7, his hands shaking as he recorded his message to Earth. The images of New Terra's destruction played over and over in his mind. He had to warn everyone about what was coming. "This is Engineer Pete Collins at Mining Station Omega-7, he said into the recorder, his voice barely steady. "Unknown alien ships have destroyed 5 human colonies: New Terra, Haven Point, Garden World, New Boston, and Freedom Station are all gone. Everyone is dead. The aliens called themselves the Kethvar Empire. They said they were going to wipe out all humans. You need to prepare for war." He sent the message through the fastest communication relay available. It would take 3 days to reach Earth, but it was the best he could do. Pete looked out at the stars and wondered if his warning would arrive in time to save anyone. On Earth, President Karen Blake was having her morning coffee when the emergency call came through. General Ryan Torres, head of Earth's military forces, appeared on her screen looking grim. "Madam President, we've received a priority message from the outer colonies. You need to see this immediately." 20 minutes later, Karen sat in the Global Defense Council chamber watching Pete's message with growing horror. Around the conference table, the most powerful people on Earth listened in stunned silence as the engineer described the alien attack. "How many people?" asked Defense Secretary Bob Wilson. "Over 50,000 confirmed dead," replied General Torres. 5 entire colonies wiped out in a single day. We've lost contact with 12 other settlements in that sector." Karen felt sick. These weren't just numbers on a report. These were families, children, people who had trusted Earth to protect them. "What do we know about these Kethvar?" "Very little," admitted Intelligence Director Nicole Barnes. "According to the survivor reports, they have superior technology and claim to rule a large part of the galaxy. They seem to view other species as either slaves or obstacles to be removed." General Torres pulled up holographic displays showing Earth's military strength. "Madam President, I have to be honest with you. If these aliens can destroy our colonies so easily, we're in serious trouble. Our entire space fleet has maybe 200 combat ships. From the descriptions, each of their vessels outguns our best battleship. So what are you telling me, General, that we should surrender?" Karen's voice was sharp with anger. "I'm telling you that conventional warfare against this enemy is suicide," Torres replied. "We need to think differently." That was when Dr. Amanda Foster spoke up. She was the head of the Experimental Weapons Division, a quiet woman who usually stayed out of political meetings. "Actually, we might have options that the Kethvar don't expect." Everyone turned to look at her. Amanda rarely spoke in these meetings unless she had something important to say. "For the past 5 years, my team has been working on something we call adaptive warfare technology," she explained. Most military systems are built to fight the same way every time, but we've developed weapons and ships that can learn and change during battle." "What do you mean, learn?" asked President Blake. Amanda activated her own holographic display. "Our new artificial intelligence systems can study enemy tactics in real time and develop counters. If an enemy ship has strong shields, our AI figures out new ways to get through them. If they use certain attack patterns, our systems adapt to, predict, and avoid them." General Torres looked skeptical. "That sounds impressive in theory, Doctor, but these aliens have been conquering other species for 2,000 years. They probably know every trick in the book." "That's exactly the point," Amanda said with a slight smile. "They know every trick that other species have tried. But humans think differently than most aliens. We don't follow the same patterns they expect." Nicole Barnes leaned forward with interest. "What makes you think we're so different?" "History," Amanda replied simply. "Look at every major human conflict. We've always won by adapting faster than our enemies. When someone builds a better defense, we find a new way to attack. When they change their tactics, we change ours even faster. Other species in the galaxy probably fight the same way their ancestors did centuries ago. Humans never stop evolving." President Blake felt a spark of hope. "What would you need to make this work?" "Time and resources," Amanda said. "I need to pull together every scientist, engineer, and military strategist we have. We also need detailed information about how these Kethvar fight." "I can help with that," said a new voice from the doorway. Captain Jake Morrison entered the room, still wearing his damaged uniform from the New Horizon. His ship had barely escaped the first contact encounter, limping back to human space with critical information. "Captain Morrison," President Blake said, standing to greet him. "I'm sorry about your crew members who didn't make it back." Jake's face was hard with determination. "Thank you, Madam President, but right now, I want to focus on making sure those aliens pay for what they did." Nicole Barnes immediately began questioning Jake about everything he had observed during the encounter. "Tell me about their ship formations, their weapons, how they communicate." "They fight like they expect easy victories," Jake said. "Their ships are powerful, but they move in predictable patterns. It's like they've been using the same tactics for so long that they can't imagine anyone fighting back effectively." "That matches what we're seeing in the colony attack reports," Nicole added. "They seem to use overwhelming force but don't adapt when things don't go as planned." Dr. Foster was already taking notes. "This is good information. If they rely on fixed battle plans, our adaptive systems will have a huge advantage." Meanwhile, across Earth and the remaining human colonies, word of the attacks was spreading. In Detroit, factory worker Greg Miller quit his job and walked into the nearest military recruitment office. "I want to join the Space Marines," he told the surprised recruiter. In New York, medical researcher Dr. Claire Watson volunteered to help develop new treatments for space combat injuries. "My brother lived on New Terra," she explained to her colleagues. "I'm going to do whatever it takes to help our people fight back." Similar scenes played out across human space. Teachers became intelligence analysts. Engineers signed up to build new weapons. Even children too young to fight began, studying alien languages and technology, determined to help however they could. The Kethvar had made a critical error. They thought destroying a few colonies would terrify humanity into submission. Instead, they had awakened something they didn't understand. A species that became more dangerous when threatened and more united when attacked. President Blake stood before the Global Defense Council as reports came in from around the world. Military recruitment was up 300%. Weapons factories were converting to military production. Scientists were volunteering for dangerous research projects. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "I think these aliens picked a fight with the wrong species. It's time to show them what happens when you threaten human families." The war was about to begin in earnest, and humanity was waking up. 3 months after the colony attacks, Admiral Scott Parker stood in the command center of Luna Base, looking at the biggest military buildup in human history. Ships filled every available dock around the moon. Factories worked day and night, building new weapons. The quiet military base had become the center of humanity's war effort. Scott was a veteran of the Mars colonial wars, where he had learned that the best way to fight a stronger enemy was to be unpredictable. The HFY expected humans to build bigger ships and meet them in direct battle. Instead, Scott planned to give them something they had never seen before. "Admiral, the first batch of Retribution-class ships is ready for testing," reported Colonel Ben Rodriguez, walking into the command center with a tablet full of technical data. Scott smiled as he looked at the new ship designs. From the outside, the Retribution-class vessels looked like ordinary cargo ships. They had the same basic shape and size as the freighters that carried supplies between human colonies. But inside, they were packed with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. "How many do we have ready?" Scott asked. 50 so far, with 200 more under construction," Ben replied. Dr. Foster's team has been working around the clock to install the new adaptive systems. The adaptive systems were the key to everything. Unlike traditional weapons that fired the same way every time, these new systems could change their attack patterns during battle. If an enemy ship had strong shields, the weapons would automatically switch to a different type of energy that could get through. If the enemy tried to jam their signals, the systems would find new frequencies to use. Pete Collins was now working directly with Dr. Foster's team. His grief over losing his family turned into determination to help humanity fight back. He had become an expert on HFY technology by studying the wreckage left behind after the colony attacks. The aliens used the same shield frequency across their entire fleet, Pete explained to a group of engineers. "They've probably been using it for centuries without anyone challenging it. Our new weapons can punch right through it." Dr. Foster nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. The HFY expect other species to fight the same way they do, but humans don't follow anyone else's rules." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison was training with the 1st Strike Squadron at a secret base near Jupiter. His new ship, the Defiance, looked like a simple patrol vessel but carried enough firepower to destroy ships 10 times its size. "Remember," Jake told his pilots during their morning briefing, "we're not trying to win fair fights, we're trying to win smart fights. Hit them where they don't expect it, then disappear before they can react." The pilots under Jake's command came from all walks of life. Maria Santos had left her job as a mining station commander to become a fighter pilot. Tony Wright was a former cargo hauler who knew every trick for hiding in asteroid fields. Lisa Hayes had transferred from diplomacy to intelligence warfare, using her language skills to intercept HFY communications. "The enemy ships are faster and stronger than ours," Jake continued, "but they're also predictable. They always attack in the same formations. They always use the same tactics. After 2,000 years of easy victories, they've forgotten how to adapt." Lisa raised her hand. "What about their ground forces? The intelligence reports suggest they'll try to invade Earth directly if we hurt them badly enough." "That's actually good news," Jake replied with a grim smile. "The HFY have never fought humans on the ground. They're used to species that surrender quickly. But humans fight harder when we're defending our homes. This was true across all of human space. On Earth, civilian volunteers were learning to use military equipment. Dr. Claire Watson had organized medical teams that could treat wounded soldiers in the middle of battle. Factory worker Greg Miller was now a sergeant in the Marines, training new recruits how to fight in zero gravity. The most important part of the preparation was psychological. Commander Lisa Hayes spent her time studying intercepted HFY communications, learning how their society worked. What she discovered was encouraging. "They've grown soft," she reported to Admiral Parker. "The HFY haven't faced serious resistance in over 500 years. Their younger officers have never experienced a real war. They expect every battle to end quickly with their victory." "What happens when things don't go according to their plans?" Parker asked. "They panic," Lisa said simply. "In every communication we've intercepted, they show the same pattern. When something unexpected happens, they fall back on old tactics instead of trying new ones. Their entire military system is built on the idea that they're always stronger than their enemies." Dr. Foster had been listening to the conversation. "That's perfect for our adaptive systems. Every time they try the same old tactics, our weapons will be ready with a counterattack they've never seen before." The training intensified as spring turned to summer. Human pilots learned to fight in ways that broke every traditional rule of space combat. Instead of flying in neat formations, they moved like wild animals stalking prey. Instead of announcing their attacks, they struck from hiding and vanished into the darkness. Pete Collins tested the new weapons personally, flying a modified Retribution-class ship against computer simulations of Kethvar vessels. The results were encouraging. In direct combat, the human ship would lose every time, but using hit-and-run tactics, hiding among asteroids and attacking from unexpected angles, Pete won 8 battles out of 10. The key is to never fight fair, he explained to other pilots. Let them think we're weak and running away, then hit them when they're not ready. Admiral Parker was pleased with the progress, but he knew the real test would come when they faced actual Kethvar ships. How long until we're ready for the first strike? He asked his staff. 2 more months for full deployment, reported Colonel Rodriguez. But we could start with smaller operations sooner if needed. Good, Parker said. Because according to our scouts, the Kethvar are massing a huge fleet to finish off the remaining human colonies. They want to end this war before it really begins. Lisa Hayes looked up from her intelligence reports. Actually, that might work in our favor. If they bring all their ships to one place, we can test all our new tactics at once. You mean turn their strength against them? Parker asked. Exactly, Lisa smiled. They're probably planning to overwhelm us with superior numbers. But what if superior numbers just give us more targets? The meeting room fell quiet as everyone considered this idea. The Kethvar would expect humans to hide or run when faced with a massive fleet. Instead, humanity was preparing to do something no other species had ever attempted: turn a hopeless battle into a trap. Dr. Foster pulled up tactical displays showing how the new adaptive weapons could work together. If we coordinate our attacks properly, we can make their large fleet work against them. Every ship they bring just gives our systems more data to work with. Pete Collins felt a cold satisfaction thinking about the aliens who had murdered his family. They think they're bringing overwhelming force to crush us, but they're really just bringing more targets for us to destroy. Admiral Parker stood up, looking around the room at the determined faces of his officers. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time to show the Kethvar what happens when you pick a fight with humans. Let's go to war. Admiral Zekthar stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching his fleet prepare for what he believed would be the final battle against humanity. 300 Kethvar warships filled the space around him, the largest military force he had assembled in decades. Admiral, our scouts report that the humans have gathered their remaining ships near the asteroid belt, reported his aide. They appear to be making a desperate last stand. Zekthar smiled coldly. Foolish creatures. They think hiding among rocks will save them. Begin the attack. I want every human ship destroyed within the hour. What the Kethvar admiral did not know was that he was flying directly into the most carefully planned trap in military history. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the Defiance, hidden deep inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Around him, 50 other human ships waited in similar hiding spots throughout the belt. All units, this is Morrison, he whispered into his communicator. Remember the plan. Let them get close. Let them think they're winning. Then we show them what real war looks like. The Kethvar fleet moved into the asteroid field in their traditional formation, a massive wall of ships advancing together. They had used the same tactic for centuries, relying on overwhelming firepower to crush any resistance. Against every other species, it had worked perfectly. Colonel Ben Rodriguez watched from his ship, the Thunderstrike, as the alien vessels came closer. They're moving exactly like our simulations predicted, he reported to Admiral Parker, who was coordinating the battle from a hidden command post. No scouts, no flanking movements, just straight ahead. That's because they've never needed to be creative, Parker replied. Today they learn why that was a mistake. The first phase of the human attack began when the Kethvar fleet was deep inside the asteroid field. What looked like civilian cargo ships suddenly appeared from behind large rocks, firing weapons that the aliens had never seen before. The Retribution-class vessels, disguised as harmless freighters, unleashed devastating attacks that punched straight through Kethvar shields. "What is happening?" Zekthar shouted as his sensors showed impossible readings. "How are cargo ships damaging our warships?" His weapons officer looked confused. "Sir, their energy signatures don't match any known technology. Our shields are designed to stop conventional weapons, but these are using completely different principles." That was exactly what Dr. Foster had hoped for. The adaptive weapon systems were learning from each shot, analyzing the Kethvar defenses, and automatically switching to new attack patterns. Every time the aliens tried to adjust their shields, the human weapons changed to something else. Pete Collins piloted one of the Retribution-class ships, the New Terra's Revenge, named after his destroyed home. His weapons locked onto a Kethvar cruiser and fired a stream of energy that shifted through 7 different frequencies in 2 seconds. The alien ship's shields, built to handle traditional attacks, collapsed completely. "That's for Sarah and the kids," Pete said quietly as his target exploded. But the real surprise came when the Kethvar tried to fight back. Their return fire was met by something no alien species had ever seen. Human ships that fought like a pack of wild animals instead of a formal military formation. Major Kate Stevens led a squadron of small fighters that seemed to appear from nowhere, strike hard, and vanish before the aliens could respond. Her pilots flew in patterns that made no sense according to traditional military doctrine, but worked perfectly against an enemy that expected predictable behavior. "Blue Squadron, hit their command ship from below," Kate ordered. "Red Squadron, take out their communications array. Gold Squadron, make noise on their right flank to draw their attention." The Kethvar tried to respond with their standard counterattack formations, but the humans were already gone, attacking from a completely different direction. It was like trying to fight smoke. "Sir, the humans are not following any recognizable battle patterns," reported Zekthar's tactical officer. "Our computers cannot predict their next moves." "Then we use brute force," Zekthar snarled. "All ships concentrate fire on the largest enemy vessel. Destroy their flagship and the rest will surrender." But when the Kethvar focused their attack on what they thought was the human command ship, they discovered it was actually an automated drone filled with explosives. The fake flagship flew directly into the center of their formation and detonated, causing massive damage to a dozen alien vessels. Dr. Claire Watson, now serving as a field medic aboard the hospital ship Mercy, watched the battle from a safe distance, while treating wounded pilots who had been picked up by rescue shuttles. "How are we doing?" she asked the communications officer. "Better than anyone dared hope," came the reply. "The adaptive systems are working perfectly. Every time the aliens try something, our ships automatically counter it." The turning point came when Admiral Parker activated the final phase of the human plan. What the Kethvar thought was a desperate last stand revealed itself to be the opening act of a much larger strategy. "All hidden units, execute Operation Payback," Parker commanded. Suddenly, human ships appeared from everywhere. They emerged from behind asteroids, from inside artificial debris fields, from the shadows of destroyed Kethvar vessels. The aliens found themselves surrounded by an enemy they had thought was nearly defeated. Jake Morrison led his squadron in a direct assault on the Eternal Conquest itself. The Defiance and her sister ships moved like dancers, weaving between enemy fire while their adaptive weapons systematically destroyed the flagship's defenses. "Admiral Zekthar," Jake said, opening a communication channel to the alien command ship. "This is Captain Morrison of Earth's fleet. You made a mistake when you attacked our colonies. You thought we would be easy prey. Today you learn what happens when you threaten human families." Zekthar watched in growing horror as his supposedly invincible fleet was torn apart by tactics he could not understand. Ships that should have been outmatched were winning through pure cunning and adaptability. Weapons that should not exist were destroying vessels that had conquered half the galaxy. "Retreat," he finally ordered. "All ships, fall back to the rally point." But even the Kethvar retreat became a disaster. The humans had anticipated this move and positioned more ships along the escape routes. What should have been an orderly withdrawal turned into a panicked flight, with human fighters harassing the fleeing aliens all the way to the edge of the system. Pete Collins watched the alien flagship limping away, trailing debris and atmosphere from dozens of hull breaches. His weapons could have destroyed it completely, but Admiral Parker had given specific orders. Let some of them escape to spread the word. Let them go, Pete said to his gunner. Let them tell their friends what happens when you attack humanity. When the battle was over, the humans had destroyed or disabled over 200 HFY ships while losing only 37 of their own. It was the most one-sided victory in the history of space warfare, and it sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Dr. Foster reviewed the battle data with amazement. The adaptive systems exceeded all expectations, she reported to President Blake. They learned and evolved during the fight, getting better with every exchange. By the end of the battle, our weapons were countering HFY tactics before the aliens even finished deploying them. Admiral Parker stood before his exhausted but victorious officers. Ladies and gentlemen, we just proved something important to the galaxy. Humanity is not prey, we are predators, and we're just getting started. The news of the victory spread quickly through human space. On Earth, crowds gathered in the streets to celebrate. In the rebuilt colonies, families who had lived in fear for months finally felt safe again. But the most important audience for the victory was not human at all. Across HFY space, other conquered species heard whispered reports of the impossible battle, where the mighty empire had been humiliated by primitives. For the first time in centuries, oppressed worlds began to hope that their conquerors might not be invincible after all. 6 months after the great battle in the asteroid field, Admiral Scott Parker stood on the bridge of humanity's newest flagship, the Earth's Fury. Around him, the largest human fleet ever assembled prepared for the final push into HFY space. 2,000 ships filled the darkness, from massive battleships to small fighters, all equipped with the adaptive technology that had already proven so effective. The news of humanity's victory had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been enslaved by the HFY for centuries were rising up in rebellion. Entire sectors were breaking away from the Empire as word spread that the mighty conquerors could be defeated. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 12 more HFY colonies, reported Communications Officer Danny Ross. They're asking for protection from their own military. Parker nodded grimly. Tell them we'll accept their surrender if they release all their slaves and provide information about remaining military installations. We're not here to conquer. We're here to end this empire once and for all. President. Karen Blake had been clear about humanity's goals from the beginning. This was not a war of conquest, but a war of justice. The HFY would pay for the innocent lives they had taken, but humanity would not become the new oppressors of the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the HFY home system, panic gripped the High Council. Admiral Zekthar sat in chains before the assembled leaders, having been arrested for his humiliating defeat. The empire that had ruled through fear for 2,000 years was crumbling from within. How could you lose to such primitives? Demanded High Counselor Vecnash, his voice filled with rage and desperation. We gave you the most powerful fleet in our history. Zekthar looked up with hollow eyes. You do not understand what we are fighting. These humans do not follow the rules of war. They adapt faster than we can respond. Their weapons learn from our defenses. Their tactics change faster than our computers can calculate. Impossible, spat another counselor. No species can match HFY military science. Then explain how they destroyed 200 of our best ships with cargo vessels and mining equipment. Zekthar replied bitterly. They turned our own strength against us. Every advantage we thought we had became a weakness. The truth was that the HFY had never learned to fight an enemy that refused to be predictable. For centuries, they had conquered species that followed traditional military patterns. But humans fought like they lived, constantly changing, adapting, and finding new solutions to old problems. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, led the advance forces toward the HFY homeworld. His ship, renamed the New Terra, in honor of Pete Collins's lost family, moved through space with a fleet of 500 vessels. But this was not the brutal assault that the aliens expected. All ships remember our orders, Jake announced to his fleet. We're here to end this war, not to become monsters ourselves, military targets only. Civilian populations are to be protected. This confused the HFY defenders more than any weapon could have. They had built their entire society around the idea that might made right, that the strong naturally dominated the weak. The concept of a victorious enemy showing mercy was completely foreign to them. Dr. Foster's latest weapons could have turned the Kethvar homeworld into a burning wasteland within hours. The adaptive systems had evolved during the months of fighting, becoming more sophisticated and deadly with each battle. But humanity chose restraint over revenge. "We could end this quickly," Dr. Foster reported to Admiral Parker. "The new quantum weapons could penetrate their planetary shields and destroy every military installation simultaneously." "Could we do it without harming civilians?" Parker asked. "Yes, sir. The adaptive targeting systems can distinguish between military and civilian structures with 99% accuracy." Parker thought about the innocent people on New Terra who had died without warning. Part of him wanted revenge, but a larger part knew that humanity had to be better than their enemies. "Prepare the weapons, but don't fire yet. Let's give them one last chance to surrender." The message that went out to the Kethvar High Council was simple and direct. President Blake herself delivered it. Her words broadcast across their entire communication network. "People of the Kethvar Empire," she began, "your military attacked our colonies without provocation and murdered 50,000 innocent civilians. Your leaders declared that humanity would be enslaved or destroyed. You were wrong on both counts. The transmission showed images of human fleets surrounding every major Kethvar world. It showed the wreckage of their once mighty armadas. It showed formerly enslaved species celebrating their freedom as human ships protected them from Kethvar retaliation. We offer you one final choice," Blake continued. "Complete withdrawal from all conquered territories, full reparations for the families you murdered, and the immediate release of all enslaved species. In return, we will allow your people to live in peace within your original borders. If you refuse, we will show you what total war really means. We will demonstrate why you should never have picked a fight with humanity." The Kethvar High Council debated for hours, but the decision was inevitable. Reports poured in from across their empire. Human fleets were everywhere, liberating worlds that had been enslaved for generations. Their own military was in full retreat, unable to cope with human tactics and technology. High Counselor Vecnash finally spoke the words that ended their empire's age of conquest. "We surrender. All terms are accepted." The formal ceremony took place on New Terra, rebuilt as a memorial to those who had died in the first attack. Pete Collins stood with other survivors as Admiral Zekthar was brought forward in chains. The alien who had once dismissed humanity as primitives now faced judgment for his crimes. "You wanted to know what made humans different," Pete said quietly to the defeated admiral. "I'll tell you. When you hurt our families, we don't just get angry. We get smart. We get creative. We make sure it never happens again." Zekthar looked around at the humans surrounding him. Engineers who had become warriors, scientists who had created impossible weapons, ordinary people who had become the most effective military force the galaxy had ever seen. "Your species is insane," he said with something like awe. "You fight wars with mathematics and creativity instead of just strength. You show mercy to enemies who showed you none. You are unlike anything we have ever encountered." "Now you understand," said Admiral Parker, stepping forward. "Humanity doesn't just fight to win. We fight to make sure the fight was worth having. We don't conquer for the sake of conquest. We fight to protect what we love." The treaty that ended the war reshaped the galaxy. The Kethvar Empire was reduced to a handful of worlds, their military disbanded, their leaders held accountable for their crimes. Dozens of previously enslaved species formed a new alliance under human protection, creating the largest free zone the galaxy had known in millennia. Dr. Claire Watson established medical centers on former slave worlds, helping heal both the physical and psychological wounds left by centuries of oppression. Greg Miller became an ambassador, teaching former slaves how to build their own defenses against future aggressors. But perhaps the most important change was in how other species viewed humanity. The galaxy had learned that Earth's children were not prey to be hunted or obstacles to be removed. They were protectors of the innocent and defenders of justice, willing to fight any enemy no matter how powerful. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking out at the stars that now seemed safer for all peaceful species. Think they learned their lesson? Asked his second-in-command. Some of them, Jake replied. But there will always be bullies who think they can push around the weak. The difference is, now everyone knows that humanity is watching, and will be ready. In the deepest reaches of space, other aggressive species had indeed learned from the Kethvar's mistake. They had seen what happened when someone picked a fight with the wrong species. They had witnessed the fall of a 2,000-year empire at the hands of beings who refused to stay victims. The word spread throughout the galaxy, humanity protects its own. Cross them at your peril. The war was over, but the message would echo through the stars for generations to come.